Hey guys, this is Dana, and this is video number 2 in the Red Flags of a Codependent series. Video number 2 is Rushing of Intimacy. So I'm going to link to the Red Flags of the Narcissist video, which is also on Rushing of Intimacy above. So if you want to watch both of these videos, they're somewhat designed to go hand in hand. So in this video, there's 4 main points that I'm going to cover. But before I get into those, I wanted to talk a little bit about what this red flag looks like in motion. So what is rushing of intimacy? Well, rushing of intimacy is basically moving too quick in any way, shape, or form. So it could be, sexually, moving too quick sexually. It could be generally sharing. It's this openness. That's how they initially kind of open that door is it's these long conversations. It's talking and texting. It's the love bombing part of it, where it's hours upon hours upon hours every single day, where they know everything about you very, very quickly. And so this creates this false bond that's really not there because the truth is it takes time to actually bond deeply with another person, right? But this feels really intense, very deep, very real, very fast. And it can be also combining finances. It can be moving in together. It can be, oh, here's the thing with sharing stories, okay? So it can be them telling you some sort of deep story about their childhood, right? Some sort of supposed traumatic event from their childhood. Well, the natural human thing when we bond with other people is we tend to match the conversation level. So if a person's telling us this intense story about themselves, human nature is to match that story with one of our own. And it's a way that human beings kind of mirror each other, and it's a way that we bond. So this can be highly problematic when we're dealing with a highly problematic person because oftentimes the stories that they're telling us aren't even true. So if they're telling us some intense story about their hopes or fears or dreams or whatever, and we're matching it the same, what's really going on is we're bonding to them, thinking that they're telling us these intense things, but really they're extracting information from us based off of stories that they're telling us that are not even true, or they might have some sort of kernel of truth in them, but it's surrounded by a big ball of a lie. So that is the rushing of intimacy too. It can also be meeting a person's children early on. It can, it's a bunch of stuff that really it's all too much too soon. So the 4 main points I'm going to cover in this video are why emotional manipulators like to rush intimacy, why codependent people also like to rush intimacy, how rushing of intimacy feels, and the codependent mindset versus the healthy mindset as far as this red flag goes. So, why do emotional manipulators rush intimacy? So, like I just kind of covered, the main reason they rush intimacy is because they want what they want when they want it, and they want it now, right? They're kind of these instant gratification kind of people. So if they're trying to extract some sort of supply out of us, because that's how emotional manipulators work, right? So narcissists and other types of emotional manipulators, that's what they do. So they're targeting us for some sort of generally money or transportation or shelter or sex or public image or social status. So their whole goal is to get that supply as quickly as they possibly can. If they can't get it from us, they're going to get it from somebody else. So that's why they're moving at whirlwind speed, because they know if they can get us tangled up with them, then it's just easier for them to use us, is what it is. So point number 2. So why do codependent people also like to rush intimacy? Well, it's generally because we are starved out in some sort of way. We have this low or empty bucket, generally in the emotional needs area, where we might be walking around feeling lonely or unloved or unimportant, right? And so it's when an emotional manipulator is love bombing us and they're filling our buckets, right? It feels so amazing to finally to feel loved and appreciated and significant and important and all these things. And it feels so intoxicating. Like we've been waiting for this person our whole life. And so this rushing of intimacy on many levels, it feels very healthy and normal. It feels like, okay, we're moving quickly, but because we're getting our emotional needs met that have gone unmet for so long, it just feels so intoxicating. It really, really does. So that's why codependent people like, one of the reasons we tend to like to rush intimacy, or that we at least also go along with it. Some other reasons might be too, is like I'd mentioned in another video, codependent people, codependency in general, tends to come across in three main ways. It comes across as excessive caretaking or controlling. I think a better word for that is fixing, or clingy behavior. And so the clingy behavior has to do with they're making us feel so alive and loved and intense, and it's just this level of amazingness, right? When they're doing all of that love bombing. So we don't want to let go of that. So we cling on to that, hoping against hope that this other problematic behavior that we're starting to experience is fixable. Or we're trying to tell ourselves maybe it's just us. Because the reality is, if we actually see the situation clearly and we see their problematic behavior as their problematic behavior, then we know that that's probably not going to change. And so, and if it's not going to change, then that means that we need to leave. So it's easier for us to tell ourselves, like, well, maybe it's me, maybe it's my past, maybe I have all these issues, because we want to stay in the dynamic. And of course, it doesn't help because they're probably also telling us that exact same thing, right? Like, oh, just relax. And it's, I've never felt this way about anybody. And they are just all in. Like, they are so sure that you are the one for them, even though they've only known you for 2 weeks. So healthy people never, ever, ever move that fast, ever. So just know that. So codependent people, the caretaking. So they might be telling, the emotional manipulator might be telling you things like, oh, they're so exhausted, they're having to work 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet. They're looking for a roommate, kind of hinting at how perfect it would be if you guys could just move in together. Or their children, they're having a hard time handling their children, or they're painting this whole sob story about their ex and how awful their ex is. And so to where you might feel this, pity for them, or responsibility for them, or responsibility for their children, where you want to jump in and take care of them, take care of their children, just kind of make everything okay, right? And again, this also goes with the other one, the controlling or the fixing one, where we think that we can, like, well, boy, their life is really off track. I bet if I jump in there that I could help them just get things on track. And so here we are, bending over backwards, uprooting our lives, possibly quitting our job, getting rid of our stuff, taking over the lion's share of the bills, trying to rescue them from their own life, which is not healthy. But it's a lot of times, a lot of us codependent people do that. It's sort of like this knee-jerk reaction we have where we feel this compulsion to jump in and help. And that's not healthy. So, but you can see how this can really be this perfect storm brewing, and how people get stuck in this, especially if they are manipulative, and then they're making us, or they're trying to make us feel obligated, that they need us to stay, that they've never felt this way about anybody before, and that we are the solution to all their problems. So if we're already feeling this compulsion to be the solution to other people's problems, it's hard to break free of that. It's hard to separate out, is this a problematic, is this a problematic person that has bouts of good behavior, or is this a good person that has bouts of problematic behavior? And it can take a while for a person to sort that out. Sometimes it can take decades for them to really see the whole picture clearly, because these people are incredibly manipulative and they often have everybody around them snowed to where nobody else is seeing their problematic behavior except for you. Then this is why it's so important that in the initial stages of getting to know another person, that we move at a pace that we're comfortable moving, and realizing, because that's the thing, right? So that, because this might feel okay, we might be okay with getting married to them after 2 weeks of knowing them, or combining our lives in a fast way, realizing that's just not a good idea, right? To go slow. I mean, wait a few months before you really start opening up to another person. The longer you can wait to have sex with a person, the better off you are as well. Just moving things slow so you can see them and the situation clearly, and you can make sure that you know you're, because that you're seeing them clearly. It's a good idea to see them in a wide variety of situations with their other friends, with their family, with how they are when they're sick, how they are under pressure, how they are when you fight. All of these things for sure before you move in with them, right? So here's the other point to this I wanted to mention about codependence and how we tend to have these behaviors. If you are in this kind of dynamic and you have children, it's really, really important. I strongly encourage you to talk to your kids about this as well. Talk to your kids about moving slowly and what are healthy boundaries, what it means to, you know, if your children are having this kind of excessive caretaking or clinging or kind of this controlling or fixing type behaviors with their friends or their significant others, this especially junior high, high school, right? So because they're going to most likely be repeating what they have learned. And so a lot of them will all, they learn from us, right? So letting them know, to pace themselves, to go slow. So one way this really comes across in junior high and high school kids is if you're thinking to yourself, boy, my child really is boy crazy or girl crazy, and they're going from one person to the next. And there's just this series of relationships where they're just never ever single. And you might be thinking, oh, it's just hormones, or that's just how they are. That's not healthy behavior at any age. And so making sure that your children have a good sense of themselves, making sure that they have their own hobbies, and that they're okay with being themselves and setting a pace that they're comfortable with. So just kind of an FYI. How a rushing of intimacy feels. It can feel very flattering at first. It feels like I'm really flattered, really flattered that this person is opening up to me to the extent that they are, especially if this person's telling you that they never open up to people like this, or that they've never told this to anybody else before, which that alone doesn't make sense because they don't know you, right? So it's weird that they wouldn't tell somebody like their best friend or other people, or like their ex-wife or ex-boyfriend or whoever, that they wouldn't have told other people these things, but they feel so okay with telling you this within the first 10 days of knowing you. That's a problem, right? So either they're not telling the truth, or there's just this level of emotional immaturity there. But it's, again, like, but when we're in it, and I've been in this too, so I get it. When we're in it, it feels sincere. It feels like, yes, and then you start finding yourself telling them things that you haven't ever told anybody either. And because there's that level of intensity and that depth that's manufactured, it's not real. So it can feel flattering. It can feel like a whirlwind. It can feel like you've met your soulmate. It can also feel too good to be true. It can feel very immature. It can feel confusing, where you wonder, are we moving too fast, or this is too good? This happens in the movies. Like, this doesn't really happen, right? Or again, like that level of soulmate kind of stuff. So again, healthy adults don't talk like this. They don't profess their undying love. There's not this talk of soulmate, this level of intensity. That healthy adults don't talk like that. And I'll get more into that here in a second about the codependent mindset versus the healthy mindset. So, codependent mindset during this, codependent people tend to often mistake sex with love. Again, especially if we have this manipulative person there who is saying everything that they need to say, right? They're talking about, oh, well, this isn't sex, we're making love, and I love you so much, and I know that you want to wait until you're married, but I've never felt this connection before. And or they're talking about like proposing marriage again, like lightning fast speed, because they really want to make love to you and they want you to be okay with it. So now all of a sudden they just move up the wedding to like next month. So again, like not a good idea, not healthy. Codependent people often take others at face value, and we often have what's called a quote unquote just world perspective, where we think that if we are being fair and just, that the rest of the world is too, and that other people are like us. And that is, I mean, if you're watching these videos, then you probably know that is for sure not the case. And that is, and I find in myself like kind of going around that mountain time and time and time again, where it's like, when will I learn to just move slow and realize that other people they might profess to have the same morals and values as me, but they don't. And I need to slow down enough to where I can see them clearly, and where I'm not kind of superimposing my morals and values onto them, because just because we might have certain things in common, like, oh, well, they're a vegetarian too, or that, they're, I don't know, like they're big into gardening or recycling or whatever. And a lot of this is just kind of normal. This is how how humans interact, right? So we kind of think, oh, well, we have this one core thing in common, so therefore that must mean we have other things in common as well. Religion is a big one for that. So a lot of people have their guard down. They think, oh, okay, well, this person is a Christian, right? Or Jewish or Muslim or what have you. Therefore, we must have these same other morals and values in common because we have the same faith. But predators are relying on that. So just because somebody has something in common with you doesn't mean that they are like you in other areas. So, okay, codependent mindset. Codependent people oftentimes have a pattern of these types of dynamics in their life, where we have relationships that come on like a whirlwind. Relationships and or friendships come on like a whirlwind. They burn fast and furious. They either fizzle out or they totally implode. And the reason being is because how we tend to do something is how we tend to do multiple things. So if the love bombing and the rushing of intimacy isn't registering as problematic behavior, if it's registering in our minds as the exact opposite, as healthy and nourishing and a soulmate and amazing, we're going to keep getting ourselves into these situations because we're not picking up that this is problematic behavior. So again, it's like, kind of once you're aware that, yeah, this is how problematic people move, then sorry, I almost knocked over like the stand. That would not have been good. So once we kind of know how problematic people go about being problematic, then once we know better, then we can start doing better. So other codependent mindsets in this, we tend oftentimes to consider ourselves an open book. And we like to bond deeply and intensely to other people. And here's just something from my own life is, personally, I'm not a fan of small talk. Like, I really absolutely actually loathe like small talk. It's one of my biggest pet peeves because I really like to know people in depth. I like to know about their dreams and hopes and fears, and I like to have conversations about, crazy deep things like UFOs and I like ideas and what makes people tick and those kinds of things. But that can be really problematic, right? Especially if me or others of us are getting around the manipulative person, if we're thinking if we're opening ourselves up thinking like, well, I'm just an open book. I used to consider myself that for years and years, and I thought it was a good thing. Like, oh, I'm just an open book. But really what it is it's poor boundaries. And it took me a while to really think of it in terms like that, because I always thought it was a good thing, but it's not. So kind of going slow, opening up, and I'll talk more about this here in a second with a healthy mindset, but opening up slowly. So, all right, more codependent mindset. Codependent people oftentimes wonder if they're oversharing, and they may feel sick to their stomach about the level of information that they're telling a new person. So if you leave, even with a friend, if you're a new friend, if you've just went out for drinks or something and you come back and you're like, man, I really told him or her a lot of stuff about me. Like, I can't believe I opened up that much. And you're feeling nervous about it. That's a sign that you violated your own boundaries, that you did overshare, because healthy sharing doesn't feel like that. Healthy sharing feels you feel comfortable. You don't wonder, did I just say too much? So even if that person's not a narcissist, even if they're not an emotional manipulator of any kind, it's it's still important that we kind of slowly reveal ourselves and open up to other people in a way that we're comfortable with, right? So let's see if there's anything else here. Point. Okay, so on to the healthy mindset. Last point is healthy mindset people. There's a couple of things here that they really do differently. So they always move at a pace that they're comfortable with. They don't get pushed into, they don't get bullied, they don't get pressured into doing anything that they're not comfortable doing. Whether it's moving in with somebody, whether it's telling intense stories, whether it's spending more time than they're comfortable with, whether it's, sending sexy pictures over the phone, whether it's talking to a person past their bedtime, whether it's, combining accounts. There is none of this justification. They're not wondering, is it them or is it me, or who has the problem here, or maybe I should just go along with things. Maybe I have issues with my past. They're not doing this dance in their mind. They're okay with their boundary. They're like, okay, well, like, this is the pace that I'm going to move. I don't have sex with new people for at least a solid 3 months. We have to be friends first. I don't kiss on the first date. Like, they have this idea of like where their lines in the sand are, like where they're comfortable, how they're comfortable going about things. And they don't violate their own boundaries. And so if this other person has a problem with that, if the other person is like, well, oh, but come on, and you can't deny this amazing connection we have, and let's just, throw caution to the wind and move in together, and they see that as problematic. And so they dial things back a bit, and they're like, I'm just not okay moving at that pace. And if the other person starts kind of hinting at they're not okay with slowing down, the healthy person's like, well, okay, then, like, I guess you walk, because I'm not going to speed up because I'm not comfortable speeding up. So they don't get pressured into moving at a pace faster than what they're comfortable with. So, and a lot of this talk, this rushing of intimacy, when it does start happening to a nourished person, they're seeing this as problematic because they realize, odds are they've kind of got their own stuff squared away in their life, and they realize what it took to get their own stuff squared away. And they're not going to put themselves in a position to be vulnerable or put themselves in a position to where that it's probably not going to work out. So they realize that, yeah, it's easy to move in with somebody, but it's a lot harder to move out. And they realize this. So they're not quick to do that. They're not quick to up and quit their job. They're not quick to introduce their children to new people. They move slow. They're not overly cautious, because it can feel like that if you're kind of this like recovering codependent, which is, I think, what a lot of us are. Then it can feel like, well, am I being hyper vigilant? And really, it's, if you are where you are, so you only, and only you know where that line is. So it's okay. Like if you need to move at a pace that might seem slower than what other people around you are moving at, there's nothing wrong with that. That's where you are. And it's okay. Like, again, like kind of embrace where you're at. And it's it is what it is. And if people like you for you, they're going to respect your boundaries, and they're going to dial things back and move at a pace that you're comfortable with. But again, paying attention to how you feel, that is the hugest sign. I think the hugest lesson in all of this is, if you're feeling anxious or depressed or confused or irritated or frustrated or uncertain, right? Then that's a problem. And that generally means that there's been some sort of boundary that's been violated. So dial things back to the place where you're not feeling that way, where you're feeling like clarity, like comfort, like certainty, like you're comfortable, like you're feeling good. This is a pace that you're okay with. If you find yourself talking to friends and family and coworkers, wondering, is this problematic behavior, then odds are it's problematic behavior. Because we all know deep down what problematic behavior feels like and looks like, and what healthy behavior feels like and looks like. And we don't tend to ask outside of ourselves for validation if we're experiencing non problematic behavior. We only do that if we doubt ourselves and we're experiencing problematic behavior. And the reason we do that, the reason we ask other people, is we're hoping that what we're experiencing is not problematic behavior. Like by and large, that's kind of what's going on, because it feels so good. That love bombing and that rushing of intimacy feels so good. A lot of times we really are hoping that it is real. We're hoping that we're wrong, that this is healthy, the healthy situation, and that we have an issue. Because if we have an issue, then then that means we can still move forward with the situation, that we just need to change. Right? But if we actually acknowledge that, no, this is problematic behavior, this person's problematic, then that means we have to leave. And it can be really hard to leave a situation that feels so intoxicating. So that's what I have for you with this red flag. I'll be curious to see what you guys say. So please comment down below and we'll go from there. As always, lots of love to you guys. You are not alone. You are not crazy, and you really can move forward and heal from this. So take care, and I will talk to you soon. Okay.